Hey everyone, in this video here, I'm going to show you a really cool plugin that you can use for physics-based actual scattering of assets and 3D objects in Unreal. So let's get started. So here is the plugin. It is called the Dropper plugin, and it is a physics-based scattering system that lets you scatter objects in your scene using physics. So unlike we might use the Foliage tool to scatter things in our scene, what's cool about this is you can actually scatter the 3D objects and they will fall and conform and stack like real objects would in real life. It usually runs about $39.99 USD. Sometimes you can catch it on sale. I think it's a really cool plugin and well worth the price. So let's hop into a project and see how it works. So you'll want to make sure once you've downloaded and purchased the plugin, you'll go into your Vault in your Epic Launcher library and search Dropper, and you will need to install it to whichever engine you are currently using. I am currently using 5.1. Next, once you start your project, you're going to make sure you want to open up your plugins and search Dropper and make sure Dropper plugin is enabled and restart engine. Here we are in a little sample project I've created, and I'm going to show you the basics of how this works and how you could maybe use it in some of your projects for some inspiration. So I have a simple little project here with a few objects I've placed. These all have collisions in them. I built out just a little play field. And we're going to go up to our mode and switch over to Dropper here. And first thing you're going to see is there's this little circle or cylinder that's kind of floating and moving around with your mouse. So this is like a representation of where the actual dropper or objects come from when you decide to drop them. So on our left side here, you're going to see there is the drop actors here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a few static meshes, drop them in there, and use them to drop into our scene. So let's try a few sample pieces here real quick. I am going to go to content and we're just going to sort by static mesh. And I'm going to grab this pill, pyramid, sphere, this guy here. These are all base objects in the Unreal content there, and these already have collisions set up on them. So since this is all physics based and collision based, you're going to want to make sure whatever objects you do put in there have collisions enabled, and make sure the collisions are decent, fairly close to the object. If they're not, then it's not going to work all that well. So here we are. Let's hover over top, and there's a couple different modes here in the system of the dropper on the left side. There's semi-automatic and automatic. And semi-automatic, basically what that does is one click drops a certain amount. And then automatic means you can hold down the mouse button and just let it drop as it goes. So we're going to try that here. And as I hover, you can see actually where my crosshairs are. That's where it's going to actually drop, is where my crosshairs are there. And as I move my crosshair around, you'll see that top part, the actual dropper part, float and change in distance, because you can see if I was here, that would be floating above there. And as I move up this ramp, you can see it gets taller, and that's where it's going to drop. So let's just drop a few and get a good idea of kind of what's going to happen here. And you can see they just kind of drop and fall around. It's pretty cool. And then what you do from here is you actually stop the simulation. And what's really cool about this is now they are all actually baked into the scene. It sets in your outliner here on the right side. There is a dropped actors folder, and that contains all of these baked out as static meshes into your scene. So now you can go through and take a look. You know, most of the collisions here are pretty decent. You know, it's fallen. You might get a few pieces that kind of cross through occasionally, like this sphere here. But what's really cool is now that they're static meshes, you can easily go in and modify them and adjust them, fine tune them for your actual artistic scene that you're trying to build out. You don't have to just rely on just the physics base, but this does a lot of the initial heavy lifting for you. So let's go ahead and clear these out. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the options and features of the Dropper plugin. So let's open it back up here. I still have those same static meshes in our system, And if you click these drop down buttons here, you can actually do similar to what the Foliage tool does. It allows you to actually scale the objects or give randomization to the scale. So let's just say I wanted to have this one scale between 0.5 to 0.1, and this one's 0.1, 2, and 0.3. So now when I scatter them, you're going to see I get variations in the sizes of the objects, which is pretty cool, similar to the Foliage plugin. You can also make this non-uniform. So if you go to free, you can actually adjust each axis by a scale parameter also, or if you use uniform, it's everything all at once. You can also adjust the maximum and minimum rotation. So if you would like things to not come out at a certain angle or rotation, you can do that. However, it is physics-based and it may change, of course, when it hits the floor or hits other objects. So as I mentioned before, the automatic mode here basically means that you can hold down your mouse and it will just continue to flow out of the dropper. However, if you want to be a little more precise and not just dump a lot of stuff, you can come over to semi-automatic. And now as I click, even if I hold down the mouse, it's only done one. So now I would need to click multiple times in the scene to cause multiple pieces to come down. However, this means that you would have to, if you need to undo these using Control Z, it's going to undo each specific click that you did, which is actually pretty cool. All right, so let's take a look at the tools here at the top. We have drop, remove, sweep. Those are your tools. Then you have settings for those. There's radius, height, rate, and actors. So when we're under the drop, we have radius, height, and actors. What we can do is the radius is the obvious radius of the actual dropper tool. You can see the little sphere or cylinder there is smaller now. So now what it's going to do is it's going to use a much smaller area to drop all those objects from. The height is the actual height of how high the dropper hovers above that object. So you can see here at 200, it should be about 200 units above this point. Sometimes you want to be able to drop things from a lower point so they don't scatter or fall and bounce quite as much. And then the other option here is actors. So that is how many pieces of items that you have in your list here do you want to come out of the dropper. And right now we have set it at 10. However, you do want to be careful with how small your radius is and how many actors you have in the dropper, because if your radius is too small for that many actors, when you first click, your pieces will actually kind of explode and scatter out, which you may not want. You kind of want them dropping and falling down. So you can see here, that works pretty well, but you can see that they're kind of exploding out a little bit. So let me just crank this up to 50 for fun. And you can see, okay, our dropper radius is way too small for that many pieces. They just kind of explode as they're coming out. So you'll see here at the top left, we have our drop tool, our remove tool, and our sweep tool. So drop obviously lets you drop the objects. Remove will help you to remove the objects once you've dropped them. And sweep is a pretty cool little tool. So let's drop a few little objects in our scene here. And using the sweep tool, you'll notice that you have your same radius, height, and a force. So I'm gonna, with a force of 100, you can see, oh, it's a little too powerful, but you can see how you could use this to potentially sweep or scoop stuff back up into your scene. And you have to adjust, your radius a little bit, bring stuff in, but it's a way to actually try to be able to move some stuff back into your scene just a little bit. Otherwise, you can always bake it out and move the static meshes afterwards. So I have 3 different examples here of some ways that you might be able to use this dropper plugin in a pretty cool way. So the first one here, I have a couple small bowls here, and I'm going to show you I've used some small pebbles from Quixel Megascans, and I've come in here and made sure to add some actual collisions. So let's go up to show and simple collisions, and you can see in there I do have some simple collisions, and you could always make those just slightly bigger if you're looking to have, make sure that they're not intersecting too much. And you can always come in there and make them much better than that. I do have it set up to where it is just using simple collisions. I'm not sure if the dropper plugin actually works with complex collisions, so be aware of that when you are using this. So really quick here, I just wanted to show you this is a Megascans boulder that I imported in, and I'm using the convex decomposition tool here, and I cranked these sliders up and applied to create a simple collision here. Also under my collision settings here, you can see I have block all, and you can either use your project default or choose simple and complex. So let's switch back here and you'll see I have a couple bowls here. I've already added a variety of stones here into my dropper plugin tool. And I'm actually going to, you can see here, I don't have any custom settings, nothing like that. I got it on automatic. My radius is 10. My, let's go to the dropper. My radius is 10, my height is 20. I don't want to be too far above the bowl, and our radius is real small. And we're definitely not going to be dropping that many actors. Let's take it down to maybe 5. And then your rate is also for how much you want to pour out at once when you're using the automatic version here. So let's go to our little glass bowl here. And well, you can see worked okay. Maybe our objects are a little too big for this. So let's undo that and let's go from, let's just do 0.5 on everything. And you can see how something like this could be a pretty cool way to fill a glass bowl with these cool little pebbles for maybe a planter or something like that. There you go. And you do want to be aware as you are using the automatic mode, as an object is dropping, it can actually cause your cursor to go up because you're basically, another object is coming into the scene at that height. And so you just clicked on it, or you're using the automatic mode. So it's continuing to click and click and click, and your dropper can raise up as those objects are coming out because it interacts with those. One thing I would recommend is if you're going to do something like this where you're going to fill a bowl up, I would definitely stop the simulation, bake them out every once in a while, because when you have too many objects trying to interact, especially in something like this, it can cause it to crash or glitch out. We're going to drop a few more here, see what we can get. As I said, you can see there, the dropper will kind of start to raise up a little bit as it's going. I am going to go ahead and stop simulation, let that go ahead and bake out. And it's not perfect. We're talking Unreal Engine's collisions here. So sometimes you'll get some stones that will travel outwards and, not stay inside the bowl here. Now that we've went ahead and baked those out, let's switch back into the dropper mode on the plugin. And so now we can start dropping some more in there. And you could see how something like this could be a pretty cool little way of filling a bowl, like relatively accurate. This is actual like physics-based, scattering, and you could see it kind of hiccuped a little bit. This does take quite a bit. It is pretty heavy on your system, so do be aware of that as you're dropping lots of objects. Sometimes you might want to slow it down a little bit. And like I said, once you bake it out, what's really cool is you can literally come in here and you can select the objects that may have spilled out or gone too far and so forth. So that is a pretty cool way. And once you've baked it out, there's no more simulation happening, and it is much easier on their system there. And you can see when we get pretty close, like most of them aren't really intersecting each other. The collisions are pretty decent, and you would actually have like a proper bowl full of these little pebbles here, say for a planter or something of that sort. Let's try another quick little one over here. Let's drop into our dropper plugin. In the toolbar here, you can either remove individual ones or press the clear button to clear out the entire thing. And I have some Megascans vegetables or fruits and vegetables here. Let's try those. I think these need to be a little bit smaller. Let's just drop a few. Nah, that works. So we're going to do the same kind of concept here. You could see how something like this could be pretty cool to, well, we got a couple big ones. Like I said, as the dropper will get a little bit taller like that if you're not too careful. And maybe we should switch over to semi-automatic. That way it'll just basically be based off of each click. And let's let it stop for a second. We'll bake those out. There you go. And let's go back in one more time. We want a nice full bowl of these awesome vegetables and fruits. They might all be fruits for I know. I don't know. And let's stop that bake. And there you go. So that is a pretty cool way of how you could use something like this to fill a bowl full of fruit, something like that. And now it's, it's baked out. It's static mesh. Yeah, it's a lot of static meshes, and you're seeing a lot of instances. I'm sure you could go in and merge those if you choose. So there is one example of different ways that you could potentially use this dropper for close-up objects or small objects. It works for small and big stuff. It's pretty cool. Let's hop in over to our second example here. So in our second example here, you can see I have a creature here that I've added in a character from Paragon that you can get free on the marketplace. And I have added a few boulders from Quixel Megascan, and I made sure, of course, to add collisions to them. So this could be kind of a cool way to build out a scene here. We're going to go ahead and just kind of click a bunch of these here and let some of these boulders fall down. The foliage tool is a great tool to use for doing some debris and scattering. However, the foliage tool is a little bit limited in the sense of you can set height variables on how deep it goes into the ground or how high above the ground and stuff like that, but it is not super easy to be able to stack things. So if I wanted to create some sort of pile out of these rocks, you can see how by doing something like this where it's physics-based and actually covering up. Let's bake this out real quick here. You can see where this is kind of cool because it could literally create a pile of boulders around this guy. And as you can see here, there is actually collisions turned on this character. So the boulders have tried to build up around him. Sometimes characters can have a wonky collision around them. So this is not going to be a perfect example of that. However, this is a pretty neat example of how you could do something like that. And for our third example here, you can see I have a front-end loader that was free on the marketplace during one of the monthly, weekly frees. And then I have a what they call a defect pack here. This was on sale at one point or free in the marketplace. I don't believe it is free at the moment. However, it has a bunch of cool objects, barrels and boxes and stuff. This is just about perfect for a cool little construction or dump site. And so I'm going to go ahead and start here inside of the tub here and just drop some objects in here. And like I said, depending on how things, well, that's a mighty fine example of some physics there. And sometimes, like I said, because of the size of your actual radius, the objects can just intersect each other. So let's go ahead and increase that up. And I am going to switch over to automatic. And you could see how we could go ahead and take something like this and literally just begin to drop an entire dump or field full of objects. And what's cool, like I said, is it's all physics based. So they're going to stack and they're going to collide and be on top of each other like an actual pile of junk would be. I went ahead and baked that out real quick, and now I'm going to hop back in. We're going to go ahead and increase our actors to 10 and our rate to 400. Let's give our radius a 500 here so we don't overload it. And let's just go ham on this and see if we can just drop all sorts of stuff here. And you can always drop this or stop the simulation while things are falling. I would not recommend that. You'll have objects just floating in the air. So let's stop it again here. And so depending on how many objects you have dropped during the simulation time, you will, it can take some time depending on your computer. So let's take a quick look here. As you can see, like for the most part, the collisions on these objects are pretty good here. You don't really see a ton of intersecting or, objects going into each other. I mean, it's really, really good. And what's cool is like, this is how it would really be in real life. Things would stack like this. Things would fall like this. It's really cool to be able to use this as a starting basis to creating some sort of scene where you want some total randomization, some total like chaos in a sense. Now, obviously for most scenes and renderings, you probably are going to want some sort of artistic direction behind what you're creating. So you can always go in, obviously a barrel intersecting this is not going to work. So just delete it. Or if you're going to be doing a shot that's close up and you notice something is intersecting, it's great because it's baked out. And now I can literally just come in and I can customize it and just move it out just a little bit, just to make sure things aren't intersecting. And real quickly, I just wanted to share this. This is actually a personal scene of mine that I created, and the dropper plugin came into play perfectly for the scene to be able to drop and scatter objects and create this huge pile of debris in the background. Worked out great. So there you have it. This is the dropper plugin. It is really kind of a cool plugin. I've only used it a handful of times, but those times that you need it, it works really, really well for creating that total random chaos of physics-based, just object scatter in your scene. There are some drawbacks to it. You need to make sure that, everything has collisions on them, and the better the collisions, the better it's going to work. And sometimes that can be difficult to do. Unreal's pretty good about creating auto collisions depending on the object. You also want to make sure that when you're doing this, you're building out something that's more like a scene or a render cinematic, because obviously it's a ton of instant meshes, and that may not be good for necessarily a game situation. I'm sure you could go in and merge the actors and it would work a lot better. If you're interested in a dropper plugin, I'm not affiliated with these guys and I don't get any money for it or anything like that, but I'm going to leave a link down in the description below. It's a really cool plugin. It's about 40 bucks USD. Pick it up, try it out. You might have a cool project that you could use this for. I'll also go ahead and leave a link down in the description for the asset pack that I used for the construction stuff and the construction vehicle there. I don't think they're free anymore, but you might still be interested in getting those. So thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this is something that you could use in your next project. If you like the video, please hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'd really appreciate it. I got lots of other cool tutorials coming on your way. So we'll see you in the next video. Peace out.